Yeah, thanks for covering and talking a little bit about what we're doing during the busier series as well. It's such an important area right now to support the companies in their growing need for information about what's happening for us, what's happening with the virus, what's happening with our location, what's happening in general. Yeah, and I think the story that others are telling as well is that it's just a valuable values to be right now to provide the data and insights that both leadership and employees are looking for. So I thought I would just start. But anyway, just a quick introduction to myself. I'm currently heading up a couple of global teams. One is the workforce analytics, and the other is a team that is responsible for all the mass reorganizations in the company, which is a busy group as well because of the love affair with that. Been in the role for a few years now. I came from the HR business partner world. Kind of gave me a good foundation with some other roles that I've had really how to use data effectively and the real need for it. I am based in Munich. I've been here about 12 years. And one of the things that brought me here was the integration of Nokia and Siemens. There were components of those two. I've been with the company, the parent companies, for over 20 years. But usually ask the audience in the live presentation how many people know that Nokia does not make or this version. 2008, this version never did anymore. So a lot of people, it's about half the people raise their hand that they know and the others not. So I think it's important to share a little bit about what Nokia does. We are an infrastructure company. We build networks for a living for all applications, fixed and wireless, and for all the carriers and hospital city streams, etc. 100,000 people globally in 120 countries. But with that, let me just turn it over to a 2-minute intro video that can explain a lot more exciting about Nokia than I can.
Today, Nokia is shaping the future of an increasingly connected world, developing technology that works for people, that responds to us, learns from us, and adapts intelligently to our needs. Driven by our vision and the pioneering spirit of Nokia Bell Labs, we're innovating, exploring, discovering new and better ways to transform technologies and businesses. Through 5G, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, building extraordinary networks, devices, software, and ecosystems. We're delivering through the cloud the Internet of Things, the next technological revolution to help us live longer, happier lives, stimulate business and enrich communities through ultra-broadband, realize a future where machines and humans work collaboratively and safely side by side. Built on our strong foundations and with the industry's most comprehensive end-to-end portfolio, services and expertise, we're shaping the future as only Nokia can, dependably and with integrity. We're enabling experiences that bring the human family closer together, helping people, businesses and communities truly connect with what they need, want and love. Because at Nokia, we create the technology to connect the world.
So no better place to be than being in a network company right now. It's really exciting, actually, and I can tell you from the situation that Nokia is as a business, we are really well equipped to deal with what has been happening with the virus situation compared to a lot of colleagues and companies that I've found that aren't quite so set up to be remote working in general in a large way in other fashions. Yeah. But I want to share just a little bit about our journey into analytics, and from my perspective, and David Green has heard it before, we kind of got a late start, but this positions us for what we had to respond to just in the last month or so. So let me take you through this quickly. So the four main phases in analytics at Nokia really are the systems integration and data consolidation that had to happen due to the acquisition of Alcatel-Lucent. This added 50,000 employees to us, almost doubled our size, and all on different HCM platforms, core and non-core systems, and it was just a massive data integration effort. So during that period, we couldn't focus on anything but integration until the end of 2017. We got a common data platform for all of our core HR data across the 100,000 employees now, and only then could we start to look at how can we use our data more effectively as a unified group. And then in 2019, last year only, again, our start last year, really expanded our use of visualized analytics, involved some additional data science capability, and increased our capability of analytics. And now in this year, at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, really focused on automating with a analytics platform that will integrate all of our data sources into one. That is moving quickly and super exciting, because that's going to go live. It already is with some of the system data already, that many have talked about, the data lake that will allow us to pull on demand. Just quickly, to beginning of 2018, we were in a very traditional, reporting data dissemination model, where the global HR reporting team, which was under me, was disseminating lots of different reports and lots of different versions and different data to users, both HR and business users. And we really started focusing at the beginning of 18 on consolidating the data and data quality. But this fundamental question came: how do we get more value from our data? Just in a quick fashion, can we utilize this? So we looked at visualization options. Of course, a number of companies were already moving in the space, and that's why we felt we were left behind somewhere. But we quickly picked this up and decided to go with a visualization platform. We happen to use Microsoft Power BI, and we brought in expertise both in Power BI and data science into my team, and utilize expertise. We've realized a lot of people were using visualization techniques and dynamic expert in Nokia, and we launched our first board at the second half of 18. Are we still good on the visuals? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, good. I just got a message. And it's a path I think a number of others may have taken in their journey on the real power of visualized data compared to what you see. So here you see the dashboards that we launched. The key for us really was overwhelming when we presented the dashboards using some manual loads of our Excel files and massive headcount files to the HR leadership team and others on what they could now see and do. And this replaced, as you see, a lot of work from the reporting team in preparing Excel scorecards and what we called State of the Union deck, and all sorts of views, 50 pages plus, could now be seen very readily. So 2019, the workforce analytics team mine really expanded the use, the visuals, the data sets, and became extremely capable at adapting a lot of the needs from the HR business community, the business leaders about the workforce. All of our metrics were now in here. We had tons of data on attributes of headcount, attributes of hires and leavers coming in, all in points of time. You can drill down to the building level. As you see here, some of the metrics that we were involved in, and really, expanded that. Coupled with that was our COE analytics group, and there's our center of excellence. And a lot of you in HR know that there are the functional streams and concept leads and program leads. for compensation and benefits and talent and acquisition leadership. And they too started bringing in some expertise and really working on expanding their analytics capability quickly, also through Power BI for their functional use. Make our function better in recruitment. What are to fill? What is our pipeline? What is our sourcing? Quality of hire? All these things came to be, and we work collaboratively together right now in a hybrid model, and we're looking at ways where we're now consolidating and looking at streamlining a lot of this. But I think the key is over last year, and this is where we started also integrating our data sources, not only between HR, but also looking cross-domain into the enterprise data as well. And we scaled this very quickly. So this is widely available now, our dashboards, and the appetite is growing and leaders are using it, and we're finding more ways to use it. But what this did, we did not know, of course, what would happen for applications to be equipped to support for this. So this call to action, of course, came for everybody, regardless whether you're in analytics or not, but the actions were being taken. Our use of analytics to quickly support company needs. So what happened about a month ago, or a little over a month ago, I guess second week of March or so, when it really started to escalate and the company leadership started really getting concerned about what is going on with our company. Is this going to impact? Where are they? So the workforce analytics team, we got an idea. We already had all of these dashboards of our workforce, and we became available of the virus information sources, and we melded those two together to say, let's overlay the virus with our workforce. And that started a chain that we connected quickly with our health, safety, and security team. They were already building a dashboard for the global leadership team, was really in need of information on our sites and our response levels and sort of the pandemic response activity governed by them. So we linked with them, told them what we were doing. And then we said, what about our travelers? So we pulled in the travel team, and they had a lot of data. It wasn't very clean and it was a bit sporadic, but we pulled that data in and said, we need to know where our travelers are, how many of them, where are they going, where are they now? And then we pulled in personnel support services. What about our employee benefits and counseling services and all the personal support services? What's the use case going to look like, and what is going on with that? And then we launched our pulse survey. The COVID has done both with managers and with employees, understand the sentiment and how they're coping, what's disrupting, et cetera, et cetera. And basically we did this starting out, I mean, as Al mentioned, the very first one, we had just spun this up, this view. We were a virtual working team. We expanded it as needed, meeting daily and getting the data right, the views right. The global leadership team was in what they were looking to see, and this was expanding to other executives. We can evolve it, and even though we developed views, we were launching as we went along. The next view, when you log on tomorrow, more complete. But for now, use this, and we did this over a period of about 3 weeks, which I have to say was really, really widely appreciated by the leaders of the company to help know what's going on. So here's some of the views I would just share with you, right? This is the first one we spun up between the virus and the workforce. And this was very valuable in that you can see the virus information. I've, of course, matched our numbers, but you could also see coming in from health and safety, the Nokia cases. You can have all the traces, and of course, this is dynamic. So if I clicked on Italy, the metrics would change accordingly, and we could look across elements of different workforces, our external workforce, our service companies that us by countries, and we also had a risk indicator indicated for events of over 50 in all of these countries or locations. So this is updated daily. It was done with a manual. We've now pulled this in, automated this with an API, so it's a daily view. Then, as I mentioned, we pulled in the HSSE about our sites and the response levels. And here you see some of the visuals that we created by the regions and again, segmentation, if you want to take a look, status of our sites. And this was changing daily and still is. So is it mandatory work from home? Is it closed? Is it fully operational? Is it recommended work from home? And this office status was also subdivided to an employee view. So we have two dashboards that were going on, one for executives and leadership with a lot of additional information, and one for all employees to a website, a COVID hub for employees, and see the status of their sites as well as the response levels. And this was important because there are certain actions related to each of these response levels, from minimal severity to maximum severity, but what's required from the site leadership teams, the country management teams, when these change, and they can go in and monitor daily. But it was also important for the executives to know what change, what they now need to do. Travel status, remember, this became a big concern of the GLT. We often have lots of travelers going around the world, and they wanted to know what the impact was with the virus and travel restrictions, and were people getting stranded. But how many do we have? Where are they going? What category are they in? We had different categories there, but you can easily go in, select the destination country, select leaving country, see it on the map. You can zoom in, if I can have country to country, and see actually in view in more detail what's happening with the travel population. Say now, or travel right now, there are very few people, so good news. Employee sentiment and well-being. We're in our third round of the surveying. Largely, as was just mentioned by the colleagues in Australia, 3 simple questions to start. Largely, how well are you coping with the virus disruption? How well is your team coping? And what is the level of disruption to you? And this is fine that, the results are really quite positive, but we're in a different industry. And it's very specific, but we were still experiencing, again, lots of concerns. We had the free text analysis going on. You can see the word cloud below, but you can filter this to the country, to the region, and by role, by managers, senior managers, managers of managers, contributors, which gave us a way to start quickly looking at high level what's happening. And of course, you can drill down and break this down into the business groups and the various categories of acclimation or disruption. Here we brought in our personal support services. That's what I was mentioning, that these are all of the cases, the web logins to our services, the actual cases that are opening. And we started really looking at to see where this is increasing. And then we were looking at this sentiment and use data with the sentiment data and the site data and the virus data, and saying, what is the pattern here? Do we need more support for certain areas? This is growing in correlation to these effects operationally, and that gave a very good a view for this, and continuing to be updated as well. So we are asking additional questions in the survey, and this is going to about 1/3 of our workforce every week. So close to about 30,000 people, and we have a really very good response rate. And the interesting thing is it's yielding information that we didn't really expect. In one case, in Latin America, the survey team was feeding us this information. We were spinning it up into the views, but where it was indicated that we are struggling, right, or I'm unable to work, they started focusing on those. And if the answer was that, there was a supplemental question that popped up about what was causing that, and the biggest factor from their perspective. And somebody answered in Latin America that I can't afford this anymore. The canteen service provider has tripled their canteen rates. This was a verbatim piece of information that came. This led, of course, to a whole view to start looking at what's going on there. And what you found was something very troubling. But that came from the survey. It was kind of unexpected. Oops, sorry. Uses just keep coming, okay? And I think everybody realizes this. And, you know, the journey is exciting, and we can start looking at talent acquisition planning. These are obviously interrelated. We can look at the planned hires, external hires. We're still doing a lot of hiring. We have a couple thousand external RRs, trainee times, and where are they being hired? Where are they coming from? Are there relocations required? And we have to know the status of the sites they're supposed to go to. Can they go there, or do we need an alternative? Again, with travel restrictions. So the blending of this information between these sources is really creating some very useful insights for the planning and assessment and decision making, right? And the new ways of analytics just keep coming. We just know, we had a request, I don't know, a week or something. Can we, from the region HR head, you know, can we get a proximity of our employees' commuting distances or proximity to their stated sites versus work locations? Because they were making site decisions. We have 3 sites that are fairly close to each other. This happens to be Germany you're looking at. We have all of our sites across the top, and you have the commuting distances. I've had to mask those. But if we have to open, what would it be? Lend other views. Now we can see who's automatically remote working as being attached to a site, but they're not really there. The data says they are. But when you look, we have a lot of sites that have been consolidated, and there's a lot of remote working going on. And we can start looking at the density of remote workers already. And then maybe focus on those that had high density of sites working non-remote. They now have to work from home. That's the biggest change, and start focusing efforts, blending this across the other data sources. So we'll continue. It's the requests come. The team spun this up in about a day. The answer to the question, can we do this? I said, I think we can. And a couple members of the team got on it, and we can just really support here. So from my Olympic view, there were circles for a reason, because I think it was an Olympic effort by the teams that came together. It's growing. Now we've added the talent acquisition team, and the what's next. And it'll be coming, and as others mentioned, this will likely be our collaboration tool analytics. All of the Microsoft Office 365 environment, usage of Teams, usage of Yammer, where is it working, where is it not? And we'll continue to drive the insights for the company. So exciting times for us. It's really, I think it's a powerful tool. I'm glad we ramped up as we did pretty quickly through our journey to be able to do this, and we'll see where it leads us next when we go into the new normal. Thanks.
Thanks, David. That was really interesting, and yeah, the new normal, whatever that is. Yeah, I think that's probably and when I think is probably definitely something that's probably all of us are kind of thinking at the moment as we sit here in our various houses around the world. What I'd be interested, David, is with what's the reaction been from the executives and leaders in Nokia to actually having this information? I mean, both anecdotal comments you've got, but maybe actions that they've been able to take as a result of having this information to hand.
Well, once we interlocked with the health and safety, they were in direct contact in frequent on what they were really desiring to see and need. And it started them these different views. The vision was extremely favorable. They said, this is exactly what we need. It's that we really use, we want to broaden the use of to our leaders, not just the executive leadership team. And then this went out to the H region heads, HSSE support heads. They said, everybody that's helping coordinate, plan chance to have this, and then they brought when we responded with do that. I think that, at some level, the company executives expected it could be done and wanted it to be done, but I think they were even a bit just at what they got quickly. Yeah, but they have changed. They've spun up different activities. They've looked at how really focusing on how managers are dealing with their employees. How much how much do we need to start communicating more on what we are doing? So you've seen a spike in communications from the leaders on blogs and on how different things are changing in parts of it. So they've responded to it based on what they're seeing.
Great. And I think speaking to a lot of your peers around the world over the last few weeks, and listening in on some of the many kind of public webinars that are also taking place as well, it seems that people analytics, if it's one of the bittersweet elements of this crisis, has been elevated within organizations. Do you see that being the case with you? And are you getting a lot more interest in people analytics generally now from both people in the business in Nokia, but also from colleagues in HR?
I would have to say yes. More than it accelerated the interest, right? And this is an opportunity to really showcase at a broad level and at scale the value of some of these data insights to bring together that they were really not aware of. But then the need to use it came, and then you had it. It was a slow bit. Everybody made it to usage, and that pulling sacred for their use. But clearly this has now shown on the value of this. Clearly the value proposition is greater than it has been before the crisis.
We've had a few questions on Slido, and again, for those of you that have just joined, if you go to slido.com and then use the hashtag 20EUR, you'll be able to ask a question. We've got a couple that have come in. Thank you, Osama Hassan, for your question. David, there's a question around how often did you refresh the back-end data, and was the frequency the same on all the dashboards that you were creating?
The back-end data, the headcount data, really currently is a manual load, and that is refreshed only on a monthly basis. All of the associated attachments we pulled in are updated on a daily basis. Some of those are now automated, so there's no touch. The employee hub information now is no touch, automated and refreshed every couple of hours. But our headcount dynamics don't change that much. That's a complicated set of data. But cool. The virus and the response levels and other things do really update.
That's great. And I think there was a poll that's come up, actually. So this might be an opportunity to have a little sip of water, David. But there's a question there. Again, you can remind me, guys, where Al, you might want to jump in and where people can take this poll. But there's an active poll
just
there.
in the Slido.
In Slido, is it?
Yes,
it is in Slido.
In the Slido. Yeah, and it's active right now.
If you go to Slido, there's a toggle there to polls, and there's an active poll. Does your organization have similar dashboards and insights? So 50% yes, but not as good. So kudos, David. And then similar and no. I think I can't actually see the full response because I've got a black box on my screen that's hiding part of it. But there's the technology for you. But so David, while people carry on voting on that, because I think it's a useful data point to have. So I think you addressed this a little bit, David, but it might link very much well to the dashboards. You talked about some of the surveys that you're doing as well. How is employee well-being being addressed within Nokia? How being monitored and acted upon as well? I think you talked about getting sentiment from Yammer and some of the Microsoft tools. Presumably, you're bringing that together with some of the information that you're creating here as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just starting, right? There's a group that we've, Al had mentioned, and Paul, and some of the things. What you have all where are you getting this data? And some of it I'm connected to, and I have to turn a switch or connect with somebody that I may know, and others I'm hunting for, right? And it's a fairly distributed sets of data, and the Office 365 analytics is one of them that now we're approaching on how we can use this. I think the gauge of employee sentiment is coming at the managerial levels. We've run a lot of information sessions, a podcast, and a lot of surveying with the managers on the toughest things they're having to deal with their remote workforce, for example, or understand how they're doing. So they are regularly meeting, probably more frequently, with their teams and doing some sub-polling with their teams, sort of anonymously, and then channeling that back to us. It's quite a focus. How are you really coping? And of course, a number of people in the space know that there are ways to assess that without asking, right? If you're looking at the data behind, this might give you some answers without asking. But, being a European-based company, and those that operate in Europe know we're a bit hamstrung from doing certain things with data very quickly with the work. So really relying on the managerial feedback in aggregate in all regions and countries on how the struggle is going. But we've got a lot of resources coming, lots of initiatives. It's quite impressive. Some managers were sharing best practices on staying engaged on cocktail hours. One of the R&D managers is running Zumba classes with his team once a week, and they just think great, kind of a new way. But that's the real focus: is stay connected. It's their biggest challenge. How do I keep them engaged?
Yeah. Actually, got a bit of a follow-up question here from Nick Garbis at One Model. Thanks, Nick, for your question. Are you able to share, David, more on the questions that are being asked to employees? Our leadership in Nokia prepared to take action on things like how well are you doing?
Yeah, and that's one just kind of yesterday on evolution of the survey, because now we need to expand on this for more insights. And we are running these surveys in-house. We have Qualtrics and we have a survey science team, so that's quite helpful. So they can really look at this. But these additional questions need to come out now, right? What is missing from the support, or what are the biggest support elements you need? But how is your view of the company's response to employees? I think, we're also looking at outside data. In the talent analytics space I mentioned, we're pulling in LinkedIn data, we're pulling in Glassdoor data, we're pulling in Twitter data, and starting to look at how this is referenced to employee sentiment about how we're responding as well. And you're starting to see quite a bit of activity, positive, on Glassdoor of current employees commenting positively on how Nokia is responding and how they're, being helped along. But we will bolster that, definitely.
And I guess the deeper you get into the sentiment, you can understand, what's causing the positive reactions or any negative reactions as well. And then, I don't know, in a couple of organizations that I've spoken to, they've talked about actually the employee sentiment goes up very highly when then leaders are communicating regularly and actually being truthful, being honest, and being frank about some of the challenges that the organization's facing. Is that some of the stuff that you're seeing as well?
Yes, and those are some of the actions that I think really were prompted by, focused information where you can prioritize where these leadership communications may need to start first, or with what types of leaders. Is it service-oriented sales? Is it R&D? Is it different populations? But I think that has really spawned a big communication effort by the leaders routinely, and our Yammer groups from our CEO that is really getting a lot of traction. He's talking a lot of what's going on. I think they're very impressed. Being with Nokia, he's talking also a lot about how the company is ramping up. We're having 800-fold data peaks in the areas, and we're offloading in our networks, and how we're supporting keeping the world connected. And this they feel good about. But that communication is really vital, and I think the guidance they've given to the leadership teams globally is taking this to heart, and I think that'll continue. I think that'll be one of the actions that truly emerge out of this is a more continuous communication flow into the new normal. We'll see. It's interesting, some of the insights as well from the colleagues in Australia that mentioned, this is yielding information where you start looking across the data from the surveys and the sentiment. And we have a fair number that are doing well, no disruption, right? Coping fine, working from home where they haven't normally worked from home before.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. And over time, you start thinking the question, why do we need site? Right? There's no disruption. People are coping fine. And we'll start really getting into this. And the same with travel. Everybody's under cost pressure and you travel and all this, but our travel is down to zero, right? Very little, but things are still happening and they're getting done. So there's the other question, right? Right? So it'll be interesting. But I can tell you the employee sentiment and listening, the continuous listening through whatever channels you have, we have a lot of collaboration tools and they're being put to novel uses compared to normal. And I think it's appreciated, it's being used, and it's just an asset. If you stop listening, and as mentioned, we're used to home working quite a bit, but companies that are not, they run into these culture clashes with managers that see their employees anymore, and this is terrible. And they start micromanaging or task burdening, or there's a lot of struggles that I hear about that we don't have to contend with, fortunately, but we can focus on other things.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
It is, and we've had a question that's been upvoted to the top of the table. So I must ask this one. This is from Tim. So thanks for that, Tim. Have you been able to include, David, or are you working on any predictive forecasts with your dashboard or in the reports that you're providing?
Well, we have a level action, not specifically related to the COVID response activities. However, that when I say relative predictions, more extrapolation, right? So we're looking at trends in the hiring and slowdown and where things are falling off. People are being a lot more cautious now, pulling back hiring things, and we see this fairly quickly. So we are predicting out a few months where we believe will change from the normal course of action. Apart from predictive analytics, we are getting into that quite heavily now with, of course, heat maps and predictive models. It's a good point. I think that what is the view 6 months from now, given what we know 2 months behind, and how things are changing. So we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Thanks, Dave. And well, actually, sort of, obviously, Nokia is a global organization, and different countries are running at different speeds, I guess, with regards to this crisis. In the countries where you're in, where there is that kind of return to work. Sorry, not return to work, return to office. Let's not call it return to work because we're all working. In return to office, are your team getting involved in kind of planning around who returns to the office and when? Is that some of the work that you're also getting involved in?
Yeah. This is a big topic right now. And it's varying, of course, country by country. And you have to understand is my betting.
David, we're not hearing you again now. I think that might be bit of a problem with the sound. I think you were saying that this is something you were looking at.
Okay, you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, just off to do. Return to work talk is on everybody's agenda, but like you said, this is going to be country by country, region by region, because of the way the virus. But they're looking at
David, I'm sorry, but the sound seems to be failing us now. But we are coming to the end anyway. So I think, firstly, thank you very much for sharing the story with us, and also coping with some of the technical problems that invariably will happen whenever there's an online event like this. And I think those of you that haven't tuned in to some of the busier crisis management calls, I would definitely recommend doing so, because we're seeing the story of how David's progress at Nokia has kind of been developing since the start of the pandemic, or certainly when the impact was being felt most in Europe back in March. So David, thank you very much for sharing the story.